Ask the Podcast Coach for March 13th, 2021.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means, hey, it's Saturday. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there from theaverageguy.tv is the one and only Jim Cullison. Jim, how's it going this morning, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. You know, no matter what kind of crappy mood, sorry to be a little, no matter what kind of crappy mood I'm in on Saturday mornings, when I hear that music, I get all fired up. It's just so great. It's just so great. So great. It
gets you going. You know what else gets you going, Jim? Sometimes
a little coffee. Can you help me with the pour?
I can help you with the pour. And of course, that pour is brought to you by the one and only Mark over at podcastbranding.co, where if you need a logo, if you need podcast artwork, if you need a website, Mark is a master at podcast branding. He will actually work with you to listen to your show and then make sure that your brand is in line with that. And if you go, I don't really have much of a brand, or I'm not sure what I'm doing with my brand, Mark can help you with that. He now offers a service where he will come in and audit everything that you have to make sure that everything's in alignment. And if you're like, I don't eat, when I hear brand, I think, breakfast cereal, Mark can help with that. Podcastbranding.co is the place to go. And the other bonus is, of course, Mark's a podcaster. So not only is he a great graphic artist, he's also a podcaster. So he gets it. If you need help, podcastbranding.co, it's the place to go. I don't know why you sipping coffee always makes me laugh. But that was a mighty fine mug you were holding up there, Mr. Cullison.
Friends over at the Dog Podcast Network. You can check them out, dogpodcastnetwork.com. Maybe the best podcast to download and listen to while you're walking your dog. I know that's a little shock, but if you need, and really a good and incredible dog community that's going on over there. We're a cat family, and I'll never have a dog, but sometimes maybe I'll get a cat that I can walk. That would be a good, like a big cat. But anyways, dogpodcastnetwork.com. Check them out.
They will. Have you ever tried to walk a cat?
No,
I had a cousin that tried that. It did not end well.
Yeah. Well, I think they have a harness for them or something, and they do that with the dogs as well. But I wonder how dogs have done during COVID. Maybe they've I've heard pets, like it's all-time high engagement with pets, right? Because people are home and they're walking them all the time. So what's going to happen when we
go back to work?
We're going to need counselors for our dogs.
Where'd everybody go, man?
I'm so lonely.
That's true. You think about it.
Yeah, I know.
There's that one commercial they had. I forget what the brand. Speaking of branding, they didn't do a good job. But I remember where the dogs is excited because everybody's taking the dog for a walk because everybody's bored. And by the end of the commercial, the dog's like, "Really, I'm good. I don't need walked again."
A year ago. So this weekend kind of marks the kind of the first. Or the annual remembrance of not everybody, but a lot of folks going home, right? The world changed a year ago, right? This weekend for at least a lot in the United States. Let's be clear. It's kind of U.S. Specific. It was happening at different times around the world. And there was some jokes, some dogs that were like, okay, I've walked enough. It's just, I wonder, I didn't do this, but it'd be interesting to go back to our show a year ago to hear what we're talking about.
Well, it's funny because I used to put like a red, almost like a ribbon kind of thing on the corner of the artwork that said COVID-19 because we were all talking about COVID. And after a while, it was kind of like, yeah, COVID, schmovid, we get it. It's not going away anytime soon. So we're like,
remember there was some like YouTube was doing, because there was all this false information or fake news or whatever it was called. And so YouTube was restricting some things, and there were mixed messages and all this stuff going on. So crazy to think that it's been a year. We've made it through. I know it has not been a happy, experience for everyone. And many have struggled in the process. And so, we continue to remember those folks who've lost loved ones during this time and who've lost jobs, and life situations have changed and they've had to move and they've had to do different things with their podcasts. So still a very serious situation. We're not out of the woods just yet, but it does feel like we're getting close, right? Doesn't it?
I did get to hug my nieces and nephews for the first time in a year last night. It was my niece's birthday, so we all went out and masked up and went to a restaurant, and so that was nice. And my oldest great nephew is now 5'7", and I was like, wow, you were this tall, and now you're much taller. And so we should probably let people know if you have a question, you can come over to askthepodcastcoach.com/join. That'll jump you right into the video where we're on YouTube. And you can also raise your hand if you're in Clubhouse. And when you raise your hand, that's you saying, hey, I know I'm being recorded. And you know who is in two places at one time, is Chris Nessie, who I have his book right here.
Of course he is.
The Pod Journal has arrived. And it's one of those things that's so simple. It's like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. It's simply, hence the name, the Pod Journal. It's a journal for you. So when you're like starting out and I go, write down 10 ideas for your first 10 episodes, that's what you do with this thing. You basically can keep track of, here's the episode name, here's this. And it's like, it's just page after page of so if you think about like a journal where it's like, usually date and time and,
Chris, jump in here. I got some questions for you. So askthepodcastcoach.com/join.
Yeah. Oh, he's raising his hand. All right. So
either way on Clubhouse will work just great.
Yeah. So he might not have pants on today. So you never know with Chris.
Or hair. One of the two.
Yeah. But he is on stage joining us. Mr. Nessie, how are you, buddy? And it would help if I turned his volume up.
Hello.
Hey, now we can hear you. There we go. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I was actually at some point going to ask a different question, but if you want to talk about the Pod Journal, we could start there.
I do, Chris. So when was that released?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and paper only, or do you have an e-version of it?
No.
I designed it to be paper only.
Okay.
Because I think and I get this from Simon Sinek in one of his books, that he intentionally released only as something you could pick up and touch and handwrite in. So I like that. So I designed it as a physical only thing.
Okay. And but you don't feel like you're going to have some folks who are going to ask for it electronically in a PDF or something like that?
I have, but I'm not willing to accommodate them. No offense to those people.
No,
I want it to be something that you write in. I think something would be lost in doing it digitally.
Right.
I mean,
I get
people who are doing it digitally can already do that.
I get that. I live in a world where we produce content all the time, and when we only put it out on paper, I get tons of pushback from folks that are like, "Why is there not an e-version of this thing?" So just kind of wondering what kind of feedback you were getting on it.
I think this is more of it's for that person. Again, think about this: a brand new podcaster may not be all nerded out on filling out PDFs. So I'm like, I just need to write down my ideas. And then I've said a couple times, I wish I had written down my past episodes. And in theory, you could do that in this, and then always go back physically and look at it. So it's a niche, right? Some people don't want that digital stuff, because you could easily, I could pick this book up in Barnes and Noble, take a picture of it and come home and do this in Word and basically be good to go.
Right.
But then you miss that aspect of being able to look at multiple ones. It's one of those things. You either look at this and go, I'm so happy I have this, or you go, I don't get it.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, cool. That's kind of cool.
Chris, did you kind of create it for the listeners of your show? Did you feel like you were getting a lot of questions around podcasting from them, and they need the resource?
I do get those questions from listeners of my show, but I've been trying to rack my brain to be able to create something that could be universally used and accepted, outside of what I do with education. And this was something that came to me, from consuming content about creating content from, again, guys like you and other people that I listen to the content and get inspired by. Dave, I know you've talked about ways that you could, like profit from your podcast, create that physical product or that digital product. And this is something that just finally came to me, and it's something that I felt I could do.
And you throw it on the wall and see if it works or not,
And so far it has worked. I mean, it's not a New York Times bestseller by any stretch,
right?
But I can look at the analytics on the Kindle Direct Publishing, which is the platform that I was able to produce this through, and I've sold probably 30 copies already.
Yeah,
and that's a nice little bit of money. So there is some money to be made. I'm not going to retire from this, but I can invest that money back into the podcast and things that I do. So it's nice.
Chris, for listeners, for those who are in Clubhouse and listening live off YouTube, what do you think the time commitment was on that, as far as putting it together? And you self-published, obviously, and so is there? What do you think? How much time do you think you spent putting this thing together?
I got to be dead honest with you guys. This was stupid easy to do. It took me, with the help of talking to some people, less than 3 hours to put this together.
Wow.
I had an idea of how I wanted to design the page, and then I spent more time figuring out how to format the cover and meet the specs and the requirements from a technical aspect, because it was going to be printed, than I did putting the pages together. And then, Dave, I can't see, but I imagine you have yours and you held it up, but there are some other pages in there that, it's like, reflect on the last 10 episodes. What are your plans for the next 10? So I put in some other pages within there, and that could help you plan and reflect on your podcast. But that took almost no time.
Yeah, it says here, reflect on your last 20 episodes. What are your current podcast goals? So,
Chris, that's great. Where do folks now want to buy this thing like crazy? So where would they go? We'll send you a bill for this, by the way. But where do you go? Where do you go to find this thing?
Well, inspired by Dave, you can go to thepodjournal.com. So I invested in another domain, and that takes you right to the Amazon page.
Say it one more time for folks, because they were scrambling for a pen or a notepad on their computer. Where do you find it?
thepodjournal.com.
Cool. Good. Well, that's exciting. Is this first published or no?
My first time doing this?
Yeah,
Yes.
First time publishing something.
Yeah. And to those who have a book in them, I think this is a great way. If you've got it, write it and find somebody to help you edit it. I think in terms of the profitability and what you might make on self-publishing, this is really easy, and you can design books of any physical size. So this is, and Dave's got it. It's a little bit bigger than a physical comic book. But to design it and lay it out, you could print your own book. So if there's a book in you about anything, you can do it yourself. You don't have to necessarily go through a publisher. And I think a traditional book, you would want to put it out in the e-format, and the money you can make on it per book, if it is available electronically, goes up from the physical copy.
Right.
So I encourage anybody who's interested in publishing a book to explore this and check out the Kindle Direct Publishing, and give it a shot. Why not?
It really, Chris was talking about how it's not as hard as you think. What you do is you first come up with whatever the name of the book is. So let's say it's, I don't know, planning your podcast. So then you go like, okay, what are the topics I'm going to talk about? Well, we're talking about, how to get your target audience. Why are you doing this? And you come up with like 7 or 8 main topics. And then you go into that first topic, and the first topic is understanding your audience. And then you're like, okay, subtopics, how to use Amazon, Google, YouTube, Quora, Reddit to see what your audience is talking about. And then you just keep expanding. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, wow, I have, 500 words or 2,000 words or whatever it is. And it's really, that's not the hard part. I always say with books and podcasting, creating it is not the hard part. It's new and it's something you've never done before, and it's a little spooky that way. But the hard thing is getting people to read it. That's the fun part. So if you've got a book in you, check it out. Check out Matt over at theauthorinside.you.com, another School of Podcasting alum who does a podcast for first-time authors. And they talk about, getting that first book published, because I think everybody has a book in you. Jim, you going to write a book? No,
never. Nope, not ever. Not in a million years. I don't need it. That's just not me. I'd rather podcast all day long rather than write a book. So,
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Well, I think you're going to say the same thing I was going to say.
Go ahead. You say it first.
Chris, I think you said you had a question, but if we wanted to talk about the Pod Journal, we could do that. What was your question?
My question was related to, I know you have the video that you did and you've put out the tutorial on how to connect the iPhone to a mixer to do the recording here on Clubhouse. Is there any other way that you guys can think of that you could connect your phone to your computer to make it work if you don't have a Rodecaster or the Pod Tracker, something else like that? Is there any other ways we can do this?
If you're going solo, yes. But if you're going solo, why wouldn't you just use your phone? I mean, that's the thing. Because, I mean, there is, I forget the name. There's a company that you can plug iPads and it's like an XLR to iPhone thing. But the problem is getting more people than you.
PC or Mac, Chris?
PC. Because what I was thinking was, and I've seen on Amazon, there are these lightning to, it'll split it out to the headphone jack and the microphone. So the speaker and the microphone, it's on there. Could you, in theory, split it out that way into the speaker out and the microphone in on a PC, like that pink and the green that we stereotypically will see? Could it work? Could you connect it that way, do you think?
Would they hear it? So it needs to create a loop back, right? So it can hear itself.
Yeah, that's the thing that you have to run into is now we're into mix minus hell.
Yeah, but that might
work. Yeah,
that may actually work. Yeah, because
if I sent the speaker out to the microphone and I sent the microphone out, or I sent the speaker out of the computer into the microphone input, that on paper it makes sense that
how are you monitoring it though? That's the question. So that would work. How would you hear? You would have to grab the speaker input that you're using to broadcast would also need to come into whatever broadcast software you're using as well.
If I was doing it, my plan would be, because I use Voice Banana on my Windows PC, so I could
that might work.
I could monitor it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I know you're I know you're a big Banana fan. So because when you start sending audio out of a computer and then back into the computer, I was like, that's a loop right there that's going to cause an issue.
That will,
unless you have a mix minus going on. And I was
and that using Voicemeeter as a virtual, as a virtual port, so to speak.
Yeah.
You may have some control. I haven't done that. I would be using like an audio hijack or loop back on the Mac, but yeah, I think it's worth, Chris. I think it's worth trying. Give it a shot.
And I looked at those adapters, and the adapters anywhere from, I don't know, maybe $14 to $25. Some of them you could hook it up and still connect the charger, so you could be charging the phone while you do it.
Yep.
So I've seen a couple of different options, but that was on my mind this morning.
Yeah, buy the best one and then return it if it doesn't work. Like, don't go cheap thinking like, well, if it works, like, just buy the best one, because in this audio world, that matters. So if it doesn't work, you can always just send it back in. But yeah, I'd give it a try. You have to give it a shot. That sounds like that should work, and so I'd give it a shot and let us know.
All right, I will report back shortly.
All right,
Chris. Hey, congratulations on your journal. And if folks go out there, make sure you leave a review on Amazon for it. That's especially from this community. If you're going to buy it and support Chris for it, make sure you're getting out there and also giving it a good review on Amazon. Reviews do matter on Amazon. They don't in Apple, but they do on iTunes. So make sure you're leaving a good review.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
We'll see you,
Chris.
Yeah, I had a guy on my show, the Podcast Rodeo Show. So this is where this is a show that it's always been an experiment, and I tied Fiverr into it. And this guy's signing up for $5, and he wants to know if I can leave him 25 reviews. And I go, I don't think you read the gig. I go, I'm going to give you one. And he goes, okay, can you copy that into Google? And I go, again, I don't think you read the gig. I'm going to give you an honest review. Right. So if you are looking, because he actually gave me the review. He's like, here, copy and paste this. And I'm like, yeah, you're not reading the gig. I'm going to listen to your show, talk about the beginning of it, and if I like it, I will say why, and if I don't like it, I will say why. Are you sure you want this gig? So that's like, but he was looking for 25 reviews, and I just was like, oh, and another thing, reviews don't do much for you. You know, they're social proof, but you know, other than that, and they might help with a sponsorship to say, look, I do have an engaged audience, but so many people still think it's the way to the top of the charts, and I'm like, no.
Reviews, I think I agree. I think there are some platforms where it can make a difference. Right?
Oh, Podchaser for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, Podchaser's been great. Like I've been turning my Gallup community on to Podchaser because we create all this content. Podchaser has a great way of creating lists and curating content, getting a direct link to that, and it pulls in all the show notes. It just works, and like they're never down. Like it's incredible what you get over there, even on the free plan. And so, do they have a paid plan on Podchaser?
They do. Yeah, it's something where you get more analytics of some sort or whatever.
Yeah, if you're going to track all your stuff through it. So
yeah, if you just joined us on Clubhouse, you can raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage. You can ask your question. Jim, here's something I noticed. I was out in the podcast movement Facebook group this morning, and I see a lot of this, and I'm curious as to why, and that is how it's all about booking guests, or the opposite. How do I get on a podcast? Or it's both, really. How do I ask somebody to be on my show, and how do I not? So I was looking at this one person's like, how do I get on somebody's show? And or no, let's go the opposite. How do I get somebody to be on my show? That's the one that I was really scratched, because I'm like, there's really only one way to get somebody on your show, and of course that is ask.
Yes,
so why, because I think we can all come up with that conclusion, right?
Yeah.
I don't really need to say, oh, you need to ask them. They're like, oh, I never thought of that. So why is that so hard?
Yeah, and I'll use an American football reference. So I'm sorry for all international folks, but I think a lot of podcasters start by overkicking their coverage to begin with. They try to get too big a guests on, and they, depending on the name, they're busy. And it's just, they're not going to be able to slow down enough to, and they look at your podcast and they're like, okay, is that going to do anything for me? Like it has to be in it for both them and for you. You can't just, you mentioned Simon, or somebody mentioned Simon Sinek here, I think it was Chris a minute ago. Getting Simon to come on your podcast could be a chore. Now, if you got some connections and you can make some things work and you got some friends, whatever, that helps make it. But oftentimes those folks are very, very busy. I would say, look, if you're trying to find guests, just look for guests that are doing podcasts like yours, and just ask them. I watched this DIY channel on YouTube called Green Shorts, and it's this guy who creates these green, environmental friendly options. He's a huge environmentalist. And I find it very, very interesting. And he makes rocket stoves, right, which are super, super cool, right? These were real popular 5 or 6 years ago, a way for third world countries and people to create, options to heat things. So he's got this channel. Just this morning, Dave, I was like, I should have him on Home Gadget Geeks. Like, why wouldn't I? He's doing all this backyard tech stuff. Why wouldn't I have him on? So just invite him, send him I'll track down his email address, and I'm going to send him a note and say, hey, will you come on Home Gadget Geeks? We'd love to have you on there. That's how I've gotten all my guests. Industry guests are another good place. Like if you're, for me in the tech space, we do a lot of work around Unraid. It's a server platform for storage, for, digital storage and stuff. Well, those guys are very favorable in our community, and when I ask them to come on, they always say yes. It's a slam dunk, and it meets the needs of my audience, and it meets their needs. So look for that synergy.
It really is. It's that simple, because in theory, you are asking this person because they have some sort of expertise that is going to benefit your audience. And so, who doesn't want to feel like an expert? And most people that are in the expertise kind of that area, they remember what it was like when they were in your audience's shoes. So they want to help them avoid those common mistakes and things like that. Right. So I saw that and I was like, and it comes up a lot. I get the whole, like, how do I get on other podcasts? Because that takes some work. I'm actually, this week on the School of Podcasting, I'm interviewing Kristen from, I think it's yesbossva.com. And what's really cool about Kristen is she is a podcast booker. And she is completely transparent, which I thought was really interesting. When you say to Dave Jackson, yeah, I don't listen to the podcast I pitch, but here's how I make it look like I did. I was like, because she knows I'm not a fan of that. But she said some really cool stuff. And one of the things is, like you said, find somebody. So let's say, Daniel J. Lewis gets, I could go to Podchaser, Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast. I could go and see where has he been interviewed, and then go pitch those places, because obviously they talk about podcasting on those shows. So unless it's something for my podcast reviews or SEO or something that's not, but find somebody who's like you. I used to do this when I was in a band. I'm actually doing the School of Podcasting right now on the show. But when I was in a band, there was another band that was very similar to ours. And so we just went to their website and saw where they were playing, and like, oh, I've never heard of that club. Right. Huh, let's go contact those guys. So we have somebody raising their hand in Clubhouse here. So Jeremiah is coming up to the stage, and then we'll make sure Jim gets hydrated here in a second. I realize we're coming up here. Jeremiah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. What can we help you with?
Good. I just wanted to chime in on the, getting people to come on your show. I've for whatever reason, I've seen the same thing on a lot of like message boards and Facebook groups and stuff. And a lot of people are asking like celebrities, how do I get a TV person or whatever? I do a show called the Media Juice Podcast, and we've had, big A-list guests on the show. And, anybody that's out there listening that is wondering, how do you get those? It's all about, you have to pick up the phone. The secret sauce is IMDb Pro. Mm-hmm. So you can get their publicist or their manager or their agent, whoever is handling that side of their publicity. You can get their phone number. Sending an email, it just goes into a spam folder. You're not going to get it.
That's it's really good advice. I think, in that world, you've got to be talking to someone who controls the schedule, right? Yeah. And and oftentimes it's not even them. Like I worked, I did some work with a high profile guy. One, he rescheduled 4 times. So it was like, hey, we're going to do this. Oh no, I can't do this because something more important. They won't say it that way, but something, right. Something just,
or something that pays.
Right, exactly. Right. Somebody just trumped you. And they're always last minute. Like if you try to ever do a pre-call or you try to get them set up so things are working, technically, no, you're not going to get a shot at that. You better be ready to troubleshoot on the fly if you're doing video and stuff, right? And then no, they're not as engaged in the conversation as you think they are, right? They just probably came off of another meeting of some kind or another pitch or another thing, or in a case of like a book author, they've been doing this literally all day. And so don't expect high energy. I mean, you can try and get it out of them, right? But it's the most of the time they're like, oh my, Dave, have you ever had a celebrity turn on you too? Like I've had that happen to me once where you just say a little bit of the wrong thing and you can see them check out. They're just like, you know what, I'm done here. And we had a high profile guest one time who gave us 60 minutes and we were in the middle of a question and he goes, my time's up, and he clicked off. Like,
wow.
Wow. I have definitely had interviews where this guy was having lunch. He was at a restaurant and on his phone and he gave a good interview, but you could just tell he was also doing other things.
Yeah. But the IMDb Pro is a great tip. I've heard that where I think it was Rob Walsh from Libsyn said, make a list of all the celebrities that you want to interview that fit your show. Get an IMDb Pro, get all the information, and then cancel your subscription.
Yeah, right. Do the 30-day trial. Yeah. Get all the info, and then just shut it down. I just thought I'd.
Yeah, no, Jeremiah, it's a great technique. I've also heard of folks going, so like a show gets real popular and they go after the lower rung, I don't know what to call them, but the less important characters first.
Oh yeah.
Right? And then, or a writer who doesn't normally get, I think, Troy
Heinrichs from the Blacklist Exposed. He started off with, he tweeted a writer, and then the writer came on, and then I think he was starting to edge towards the actors. And the executive producer, John Bokenkamp, I think is his name, was like, "Hey, like, how do I get on the podcast?" And they're like, "Oh, all right, sorry." You know, he's like,
what a perfect scenario, right? Where all of a sudden they start getting FOMO. They're like, "Hey, wait a minute, how come I'm not on this thing?" Right?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, another using your Jeremiah using your IMDb idea of going down the list and trying to maybe start at the bottom, or producers or writers. I mean, think about a writer. They don't get any exposure on these kinds of things, right?
Zero.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is too, I was actually going to bring that up, because if you have somebody, you know, even though they're playing quote unquote lesser roles, or they're a writer, or they're somebody behind the scenes, everybody knows everybody. So if you go to somebody's agent and say, "Hey, I've had so and so and so and so on the show," that just instantly gives you credibility. You know, you have a sort of a tableau of people that, hey, we've done this, we've had celebrities, we've had people. It gives you sort of a better foot in the door to get going when you want to get those bigger names.
Yeah, and the key there is, this is not the person you want to practice on. This is somebody, when you show up on time, they show up on time. Thank you so much for make this a great experience. So that way, when the you know, if it's a TV show, let's say, and it's that reoccurring character that's not really a cast member, but they're on about every other episode, and you have that person on, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, "I don't know, this guy named Dave wants me to be on his podcast." That person can go, "Oh, I was on that podcast. That guy's great. You should do it."
Yep.
So don't blow it when you get that shot.
Jeremiah, do you have a podcast? Are you a podcaster?
I think right.
I've got a couple. My main show that I'm putting a lot of energy into right now is an audio drama called Cryptic. You can check it out, crypticpodcast.com. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks
It's about
for jumping in.
Ohio legends. So yeah, good stuff.
Dave, that's your neck of the woods. Ohio. You said Ohio legends, right?
Yeah. All the myths and legends, you know, Mothman, Sasquatch, Lake Erie Monster, Dave Jackson.
I look like Sasquatch right now, so that's a beautiful thing.
Jeremiah, thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. Thanks, guys.
Have a great weekend.
We have I have to let them know. Yeah, Colin, hang tight. We're gonna get to you next here on that, but first, Jim needs more coffee.
I need some.
So, there we go. And while you're
this actually makes a sound all in itself. Like
it did. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't hit the button yet. It's like, that's amazing. But we do want to thank our awesome supporters. And of course, we have the first one up again, our teacher's pet, and that is the Dog Podcast Network. If you have a dog and haven't checked out the Dog Podcast Network, what is wrong with you? It's stories about dogs. I know. Well,
nicely done.
I was trying to come up with a
shame.
That's it. We worked very hard on the Dog Podcast Network. You should get over there and listen to a dog. It's a dog story. They have 101 dog. I don't know why I'm doing that. Dogpodcastnetwork.com.
It was a good try.
Check out the dog edition. And plus, if you are a creator and you have a dog, you can actually win up to $5,000. They're looking for 101 dog stories. Again, check it out, dogpodcastnetwork.com. And we always thank our awesome patrons that donate $20 or more. And that is Shane from Spybrae. In fact, today we are doing something new because of Shane. And that is patrons will no longer get advertising in their show. And I was like, never even thought about it. What do you think of that idea, Jim?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
So like the beginning where we do, you know, the whole thing and Shane's like, hey, you know, I'm a patron. He's like, any chance I can get one of these without the ads in it?
You'd make a version where you'd cut the ads out?
Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like it.
Just for patrons.
Yes. So that's a great idea.
So, because if you think about it, Shane already knows about Shane because he's Shane. Right. So, and these people are on the website again. If you go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, people like Ed Sullivan at soniccupcake.com, Felix over at the Latin Podcast Awards. You can find that at latinpodcastawards.com. That is brought to you by the Audio Dice Network. And I'm just a kid in the 80s, man. Every time I hear the word dice, I just instantly want to go, it's part of the Audio Dice Network. Oh, Glenn the Geek Hebert over at horseradionetwork.com. I have a new t-shirt at podcastclothes.com. that says "Don't be boring," and that is inspired by the one and only Glenn the Geek Hebert over again at Horse Radio Network. If you like horses and you're not over at horseradionetwork.com, what is wrong with you? I'm just going to say that to everybody. Mm-hmm. If you like airplanes and you're not over at aviationnewstalk.com with Max Trescott, what is wrong with you? If you are having problems with your finances and you are not over with Greg at debtshepherd.com, what is wrong with you? If you need help just
How long
getting
can you
words,
keep this up, Dave?
yeah, if you need help getting words out of your face, then and you need some more confidence in that, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you over at Toastmasters101.net? It's just a running theme. That might be the name of the show. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
If you have a true crime podcast or a comedy show or something that's kind of spooky, and you have not given it to Greg over at IndieDropIn.com, that's right. What is wrong with you? You can get more exposure for your show over at IndieDropIn.com. If you want to go meet one of the coolest guys on the planet, Michael Delaney over at Baby Mountain Radio Productions, he helps podcasters make that whole podcasting thing fun. And if you'd like to be an awesome supporter, you can go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and see our $10 and $20 supporters are listed on the page. And for more options, if you just want to do a one-time donation or anything like that, askthepodcastcoach.com/store. And that's also, we were talking books earlier. You can find my book over there at askthepodcastcoach.com/store. And I'm trying to figure out.
Two thoughts on what you just said. So one is, if you take the ads out for the Patreon subscribers, do we have a 10-minute show? Like, you kind of like,
it's a good,
how much advertising, because we do quite a bit, right? I mean, we try to, and then the second question leads to, we bake the advertising in because that's just what we do. It's meant to kind of flow through the show. If you take it out, does it create kind of does it make sense? So do we need, knowing that? So knowing there was going to be a Patreon version only, do we tighten up the ads in a way where when you do remove them, because we bake them in, right? We do them, we read them, it's host read. Do we have to do the show a little bit different so the Patreon folks don't feel so herky-jerky on, because all of a sudden, you're going from your welcome, because we go welcome right to the coffee pour, right to the cup sponsorship.
Right.
Then we get into the material.
What I probably will do is I might have to do a new intro. And go, hey, thank you so much. Because we got to do the whole. I don't know. I'll have to think about this.
Yeah, maybe we have to restructure some.
It's going to be some creative editing, but
well, you want to make it easy for yourself too, right? If you're going to do this, you don't want to create 60 minutes of edits to just pull the ads out, right? You want to. So we have to think a little bit more about compartmentalizing, but not making it feel like it was compartmentalized, right?
Yeah, I'll have to.
Yeah, there's some work there.
Yeah, just a little planning, I think. But we want to get Colin up on stage. Why can I not?
Sorry.
That's good.
Clubhouse fans, thanks for staying around.
And Chris Christensen is on deck again from the Amateur Traveler. Colin, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for bringing me up. I do have to comment. You guys started off the show talking about what to do with your dog's anxieties.
Yeah.
My wife and I have been professional pet sitters for the past 9.5 years. So hire a dog walker or pet sitter to come and take care of them for you.
There you go.
But I had a question for you about tools or apps that delight you in podcasting. I recently discovered Brett Terpstra's app, Bunch. And with one click, you can open all the apps that you need to start podcasting. It simultaneously closes everything that you don't need, can change inputs, outputs, all sorts of stuff. So
PC or
I was just curious what kind of... Yeah, on the Mac. It's a Mac app.
If it's really cool, it's on the Mac.
Yeah. and it's $49.
Yeah.
It's actually free. It's actually free.
Okay.
Bunch.
Yeah, Brett. Huh. Yeah, Bunch. It's just a single click, and actually you kind of program it in just a simple text document. He's got really simple commands that you type in and tell the app that you want to do that command to. And then it saves that as a bunch. And with one click, I open all of my editing, recording software. I go into Do Not Disturb. I switch all sorts of stuff, open Safari tabs,
nice,
all sorts of stuff. So
will it do anything in the app? Like, can you program it to control the app? Like, say I open up a web browser and I want to do the same thing in Spreaker each time. Will it get that granular, or is it just only able to open the browser?
So I have it open up to a very specific Google Doc, every single time.
Okay.
So you can send it directly to a very specific website,
Right.
and I have it open 4 or 5 tabs simultaneously, and it's just saved me a lot of time. And it's a fun app, and it kind of brought a little bit more joy to the process. So I was wondering if you guys had anything like that you've discovered or that you like to use that brings joy to your workflow.
Mine is just Evernote. Anytime somebody is saying something, that I'm like, ooh, there's that. So I always capture ideas in Evernote, and then making screenshots. That's another one. If I'm in the car or something, I'll take a screenshot of Evernote, or not Evernote, Overcast is what I listen in. And then I will, forward or share that screenshot with myself in Slack. So I'm like, oh, I need to go back to this and listen to it. There was something really cool because I took a screenshot of it. I don't know, Jim, do you got anything that you do?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned this on the show. I've been using raindrop.io to kind of manage my bookmarks. And that has a feature in it where I can select, like I can put all the bookmarks in a folder. You can do this in your browser tab, by the way, but puts all the bookmarks in a folder. And with 2 clicks, I can open them all, kind of like you're talking about, Colin, where I can open them all at the same time. So it opens up, 19, there's 19 browser tabs that I open when I'm producing my podcast, and it opens them all up at the same time. So that I have found that helpful. I need to dig in on the Mac side. There's also some ways to do some scripting and some automation to do some of what you're talking about. Like I do the same thing in, what's the shoot? Now I'm blanking on the application. The one that compresses video for you and Handbrake. Yeah. So I do the same things on Handbrake. So I'm kind of looking for a scripting tool that'll just allow me to open Handbrake, grab the file in this destination, bring it in, set the 2 formats that I do it in, and then export them. Because it's exactly the same. I do the exact same thing every single week. And it would be nice to kind of click a button and be able to have all those things done. I know. So Leo Laporte, who does, on the Twit network, they have automated all their processes for posting things places. And that'd be another area, Dave, I think, where if I could script it to say, okay, here's the audio file, go to this website, put it in, submit these, put these things, like grab from this document and put the title in the description, because I just copy and paste them. So maybe I got some work. Maybe, Colin, maybe I have some work to do there, a little bit more of thinking about just how to automate that. Although, to be honest, it's smart. You get into automation and you stop checking things. And on some of those sites, it's a good idea sometimes to just check on them. What, are they still doing it? Is it still working? Some of those kinds of things.
Well, Daniel in the chat room was pointing out you can make an Overcast to Evernote workflow into a Siri shortcut.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've heard so much about Siri shortcuts, and I think I only have one. I forget what it is. Something like play podcast starts whatever's in it. Overcast.
Well, on the Windows side, there's Cortana integrations where you can do things now. I mean, there's so much of this home automation type stuff that you could apply to, you could apply to it. So,
and Colin, you said the name of it was Bunch.
Yeah, it's Bunch, Bunch. It's by Brett Terpstra. He's a longtime Mac developer. And he's always doing some really cool stuff on the Mac side, and it's really easy to use.
I'll have to check it out because I'm new to Mac, and so I've been trying to figure out where's the right places to live. It's been painful because, like I alluded to the joke earlier, everything on Mac is like $50, so it makes it harder sometimes to just try things out, and the trial versions aren't very good in some cases. And so, going from PC to Mac has been a little painful. Not good to hear. This is free, at least to start. Do they have? Are there like pro versions and stuff that you can buy if you want to? How's that work?
No, it's free forever to use.
Wow.
And he has several apps that he does for that. He does produce other apps that are more true programming wise that he does for the app for the Mac. But he does have a few free ones out there like this that I've just found it's really lightweight. It's really user friendly. It's sped up my process a lot.
Not in the Mac store. Is this something you go to a website and grab and sideload basically?
Yeah, I think it's at brettterpstra.com. I think that's his website, and you can download his apps from there.
Okay. Yeah, Craig in the chat room says, I just started using Text Expander on Windows. Yeah, schoolofpodcasting.com/Text Expander. I live and breathe by that because I answer the same questions all the time. So I'm constantly.
I think that's cross platform. In other words,
Yeah.
if you have it on Windows but you have a Mac, I think you can because it's browser integrated, right?
Right. Yeah. So I can actually have it in all my. I think it's clips or whatever it is. They're in the cloud, and so when I make one on my PC and then jump to my laptop, I can just pick up right there with it. So text expander is another.
That's another one I need to use more of because in my job I type the same things all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I need to just start typing, and it will say, "Hey, is this like this?" And you go, "Yes," and it just puts in the whole paragraph for me.
Yeah.
So
here is a blank notepad, and all I have to type in is hashtag, and I just always add a hashtag, and I believe it's rodeo show. Boom. There's the HTML for.
You got to be on. Sorry, Clubhouse. You got to be on YouTube to see.
But I just spit a whole bunch of text onto the screen that I didn't have to type. So yeah. So there are all sorts of fun things. The other thing I do is in Hindenburg Journalist, and you could do this in Audacity, Audition. I have a file called SOP, which is short for School of Podcasting blank. And when I open it up, my intro music is right there. And in Hindenburg, they have a clipboard. So every sound I use in the show, the school bell, the whoosh, the ending music, the that's a good question. All the stupid files I use in every single episode are there. So it's kind of a poor man's template. So when I open that up, and then the first thing I do is rename it under the number that it is. So that's another one. So I'd have to go, oh, wait, where's the school bell at? Wait, where's the, that whole 9 yards. So
yeah. Colin, where do you have a podcast? Where do we find your podcast?
My wife and I co-host the Pet Sitter Confessional podcast. We're by pet sitters for pet sitters. We interview pet sitters from across the globe talking about their stories and things they've learned. And you can check us out at petsitterconfessional.com.
Nice. So great. What kind of that's like a hyper niche.
Yeah.
Right. What kind of from a listener standpoint, how do you feel? What kind of audience do you attract with that, and what are you able to do with it?
Yeah, so it's taken some time because we do have to disambiguate ourselves from just pet parents because we get a lot of people that think we're for pet parents and are confused by our topics because it's like we're pet sitters talking to pet sitters, dog walkers, groomers, vets, and just kind of a little bit about behind the scenes. And we've really been blown away by the response. Because pet sitting can be kind of a lonely time when you're out there at all hours of the day, not talking to anybody. And so we get a lot of people who have commented and sent us emails and feedback saying that they finally feel like they get somebody that understands what they're going through.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's hyper engagement. Like when you reach that level, when people say, I've been looking for you, you have hyper engagement on that. And so what do you do? So from an audience engagement perspective, are you guys doing any advertising? Are you monetizing it in any way? Or is it just kind of labor of love?
Well, it is a labor of love, but we have also reached out to a few sponsors. We sat down after about a year in and made a list of the kind of sponsors that we would love to work with that were very pet sitter specific. And we have been very thankful that we've now brought on 4 sponsors that are directly at pet sitters. We're not selling mattresses or underwear or socks, right? It's software for pet sitters. It's insurance for pet sitters. It's some business tools and things like that.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, good job, Colin. Good work.
Yeah. And Colin, is your last name out in the public?
Yes.
He has the coolest last name ever.
Oh,
Funkhauser.
Oh yeah.
It's just like Funkhauser is in the house.
Right on.
Excellent.
Right,
So
I love it.
I saw that. I was like, that sounds like a name of a band. This Saturday, Funkhauser. So
yeah. Somebody who also comes from the future to destroy the present. Colin, thanks for jumping in, and appreciate you being with us here this morning.
Thanks, Maddie.
Hey, thank you.
And
Dave, before we jump, there's a ton to explore there with.
Oh, that's when I'm like,
put it in your Evernote, right?
This is what I use. This is what I use Clubhouse for. I'm like, I need to go back and talk to that guy. Because that's that's almost, he's up there with chameleon breeding. You know what I mean? It's like
not as creepy, but
not as creepy. Yeah. That always gets a weird mental picture. Some little Geico going to town with a Wawa in the background.
No, do we have somebody waiting?
We have two people waiting. We have
good.
Marco. Hang tight. We're going to get to you next up. We talked to him last week. The one and only Chris Christensen from the Amateur Traveler podcast. Chris, how are you, buddy?
Good. And coincidentally, I was just thinking of wearing a Funkhauser amp from my guitar. So,
and we've come full circle.
That's right.
A couple tips in the Hindenburg. You talked about putting things in the clipboard. There's also a favorites, so you don't have to have a template thing. Those favorites available in any new file you open up. And so you can put your things in the favorites, and then just anytime you open up a new file, you can have those clips available.
I did not know that. That is
I guessed that from the fact that you said that. I've just started using Hindenburg, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So
you just rocked Dave's world, Chris. You just rocked his world. Like his eyes got really big.
I was surprised that you had not thought about not putting in ads for a version for Patreon, although I think you're thinking about it a little backwards from how I think about it. So I do a version of the show first with no ads. That's in some ways the real show. And that version of the show comes out earlier in the week for the patrons, or for the patrons rather. And one of the reasons that I do that is then I put in the ads later, and since I'm putting in later in the week, maybe I'll get another ad in, just depending on who's selling and when things drop. But also, one of the things that is the problems with the baked in ads is that typically people are willing to pay you based on your downloads in the first, 4 weeks, 30 days or something like that. But my show has a long tail. So, I'll get 11,000 downloads in the first month, but I'll get 15,000 by the second month. I'll get 20,000 by the end of the year. Those I'm giving away for free. So I don't leave the version of the show up that has the ads in. I promised it to be up for a month, but I usually leave it up for about 3 months. And then I'll switch out to do a version without the ad, because you didn't pay for that. If you want to pay for it, sure, we can talk about that. But the other thing too is I'm getting ready to do more inserted ads, not necessarily not host read, but I want to be able to insert in the back catalog, because most of my downloads in a given month are the back catalog.
That's an interesting.
Chris, you're not live though, right?
I am personally live.
No, you know what I mean. You don't do a live show in the sense.
No, I don't do a live show, and I don't see myself doing a live show.
Yeah.
Because I put in hours of post-production, putting in links and photos, because we're talking about travel places.
Right.
So when you're listening to an episode of Amateur Traveler on the right particular podcatcher, then you're actually seeing the places we're talking about. And that takes hours after. So no, I am the opposite of live.
So I think a little different if we are live, because we create a version of this that has
for your version, but I'm thinking for other people who are creating things. Yeah, exactly. I know
just
what you're talking about.
Yeah, just to clear that up for some folks, that I think the genre on how you produce it can make a difference as well. If you've got that capability to just record it, you can do a lot more with it. But with live, I mean, our live engagement is ridiculous. And so we want to make sure we're getting those ads in for that live audience as well. Although, that being said, it doesn't mean, Dave, you and I couldn't create a live show that was ad-free. And then at the end of the show, we could create those ads and you could insert them in. Right.
I think it was Ross was saying. He goes, you could always add the ads in later. And I was like, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, you don't get the same. I don't think you get the same energy or the same feel when you're doing it that way. Just when you bake them in and there's a live audience, it adds tension and it's good, right? It just creates a different kind of tension. But you could, Laporte does this. He records the show and then he records the ads after sometimes. Sometimes they're baked in, but he also does all his upfront ads after the show. So it sounds live, and then they put them in at the beginning. Anyways, so Chris, that's some great insight, though. I think for some podcasters that opens some doors to thinking through, like, okay, where do I put these in, or how do I put these in? And so I think that's some good.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Chris, where do we find your podcast?
You're welcome. amateurtraveler.com and wherever fine podcasts are distributed.
Nice. Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. And as we start to wrap up the first hour, the one and only, I don't know why I am having a problem with this. There he is. Marco is coming to the stage. So, Marco, how are you? What can we help you with? Oops, you were there and then you muted yourself. There we go. What can we help you with?
Hey from Hamburg, Germany.
Hey.
I am also a podcast producer. I'm centering my podcast around photography, education, and inspiration. But I wanted to give you a tip on just being a recent Mac user. There's one tool that has really saved me a lot of time, and that is the app Paste. I don't know if anyone of you knows about this app.
No, give me a little background on it, because I'm the new Mac user.
Yeah, it's a clipboard manager for Mac, iPhone, and iPad. And basically anything you put in the clipboard, so command copy, is stored there. You can go back month if you want to. And you can also use it if you copied this on your Mac and then you're on the road on your iPad, you can just go to Paste and you find the same thing. So if you have I know the text expander is great, but sometimes you need a little bit more, or you have unique things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a code that's recurring for your podcast. I know there's some CSS code that you sometimes need to put into the show notes or stuff like that. It's super easy, and you have it cross-platform. And I think that's a very, very cool tool, cool app to use. It's a 14-day free trial, and then you have to pay, I think, monthly or yearly fee. But that has saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
By the way, Windows 10 has this feature. They just started it, so it's a global clipboard. So if you're on the Windows side, it comes with Windows, and you do a copy paste. You're going to get a new. Well, the very first time you go to use it, they're going to ask you, "Hey, do you want the new global clipboard?" And if you say yes, from then on, your copy paste experience changes. It's a little jarring at first, because instead of just doing Control C, Control V to copy and paste, you go Control C. Then when you go Control V, a dialog box pops up and says, "Hey, here's all the things that you've copied in the past. Do you want to do one of these things?" And so just a little experience change. So if you're a Windows user and you're updating on the most recent version of Windows coming up, this feature exists in Windows as well. I will, Marco, I will definitely have to check this out on the Mac. Yeah. It would be awesome if I could get it based on the browser and not based on like copy paste browser, not copy paste OS, because I do cross-platform. I'm on, one side is Mac and the other side is PC on my desktop here, and I share them with Synergy. And I'd rather have that. Are you familiar with anything that goes copy, paste, history based on the browser?
I'm sorry, no. I thought Paste was already pretty cool, but I only use Macs. I've stopped using Windows 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, right on. I live in a world. I was a Windows guy, and when the M1s came out, I was like, I can't miss this. Like, I gotta have an M1. So like my daily driver's an M1, but I still have a lot of PC stuff that I have to do. So I've been working on a lot of cross-platform things. You'd have a hard time telling in the studio now what I'm on, because I really drive everything through the browser. So when you come down here, you'd be like, okay, you'd only be able to tell based on the toolbar on the bottom now.
Even post-production?
Yeah, yes, I'm doing post-production on both. So it's a weird world, but
because that's one of the reasons why I haven't upgraded to an M1, because of Isotope.
Yeah,
they still have problems when they're integrated in Final Cut, for example. That doesn't work yet.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't work all the way yet on the M1.
And the audio industry is very slow in adapting sometimes.
It'll come.
And Marco, Craig in the chat room wants to know: is your photography podcast in German or English?
Oh, it's in English.
In English. All right.
It's global.
And where can we find that at?
That would be very simple. ppn.fm. That stands for Photo Podcast Network. Different shows, different inspiration, great audience. And it's been really great to reach the whole world with photography, now that everyone is a photographer. And we have great guests there that inspire, and all different genres of photography.
Well, the reason I'm a podcaster, my very first voicemail came from Nuremberg, Germany. And I was like, wait, what? Did he say Germany? And I was like, wait, I'm reaching somebody on the other side of the planet. I was like, and that's at that point I grabbed my flag and planted it firmly into the podcast world. So very cool. So, hey, thanks for coming on. We appreciate the tip. You can find the Paste app at pasteapp.io. So Marco, thanks for the tip.
In. You bet.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dave, Clubhouse has really, I'm still not a giant fan, but Clubhouse has really changed the quality of our call-in.
Oh, absolutely.
Just been, it's so good. I keep it waiting for the Baba Booey, and it's just not. It's not happening.
Yet.
No,
We have. I was going to make a Bangs joke, but I'm not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, right on.
We
right
lost
on.
our Baba Booey.
Listen, I'm not saying our YouTube friends aren't great. It's just it wasn't a platform that encouraged this kind of chat. I mean, the Clubhouse folks, really good quality questions. So
insights, and we got people. This is the epitome of what I tell people. If you want to grow your audience, you have to go where your audience is that doesn't know you yet.
Right.
And I think we're reaching people that go, wait, who's this Dave Jackson? What,
Right.
Jim who?
Who's that Jim guy?
Yeah. So speaking of that Jim guy, Jim, what is coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
I know podcasters aren't supposed to do this, Dave, but I took a week off.
Oh, what are you,
How great is-
crazy?
Felt so good to not have a production to do this morning. Just I've been burning the candle at both ends. And so yes, podcasters, when you get weary, just take a week off. Like they'll be there when I get back next week. So no show. No, but if you want to find what I currently do, you can head out to theaverageguy.tv.
That's right. Go listen to that back catalog. On the School of Podcasting, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about how to get booked on other podcasts, because we all say, well, here's how you grow your audience. One of the ways is to be on other podcasts, and it's like, how do I do that? Kristen is amazing. There's I was editing it on Wednesday, and I'm going to do something very weird in the middle that I've never done before, because there's just an awesome, really, really great answer. And I'm like, okay, I need to do something with that. So find that at schoolofpodcasting.com. That's coming out on Monday. And for everyone listening to Clubhouse, hang around. We've got some more post show, but we make it sound like it ends now.